Melody and Martell seemed calm, and fans thought the drama was finally over. Something unexpected happened again. It wasn't a new episode, a comeback announcement, or social media drama. It was something much more serious and emotional. In an interview, when asked about co-parenting, Melody admitted that it has been very difficult and still is. However, she made it clear that she is in a good mental space. She explained that she surrounds herself with positive energy and has no hate or anger in her heart. She doesn't wake up thinking about revenge or negativity. Instead, she focuses on her goals and her children. Then came a moment that shocked many people. Melody went to a hospital, not for attention, not for drama, but for Martell, the same man who once caused her a lot of pain and public heartbreak. And she didn't go alone. Their children were with her, quietly standing by her side. Inside that hospital room was Martell, the man whose past actions led to years of conflict, emotional pain, and public arguments. This wasn't a filmed scene or scripted moment. There were no cameras or production, just real life, real emotions, and a very tense situation. At first, people couldn't understand why this was happening. Why would Melody return to that space after everything that happened? But the truth was deeper than people expected. It wasn't about love or reconciliation. It was about responsibility and family. To understand this moment, you have to look back. There was a time when Melody and Martell seemed like a strong couple. They built a life together, raised children, and worked on businesses as partners. From the outside, they looked like a successful family living a perfect life. But behind closed doors, things were not the same. Slowly, problems started appearing. Arguments, tension, and emotional distance. What once looked strong began to break apart. Eventually, serious betrayal came to light, and everything changed. The situation didn't stay private. Their personal struggles became public, and every detail was discussed and judged online. Melody had to deal with heartbreak while also being in the spotlight. It was painful, overwhelming, and exhausting. Despite everything, she tried to stay strong. She focused on raising her children and rebuilding her life. Martell, on the other hand, became heavily criticized. Many people questioned his actions, while others wondered if he truly changed or not. Their relationship eventually ended in a very public and painful way. After the separation, Melody made a decision to move forward and focus on herself and her children. It seemed final, like there was no turning back. That's why the hospital situation surprised everyone. In the days before it, Martell had become very quiet. He wasn't active online, and people noticed a change in his behavior. He posted short, emotional messages about health and slowing down, which made people worry. Soon, rumors started spreading that he had been hospitalized. Some said he collapsed, others said it was stress or exhaustion. Eventually, Melody confirmed that he was indeed in the hospital. What shocked people even more was her decision to go see him and bring their children along. Inside the hospital room, the atmosphere was heavy but different. There was no shouting or conflict. Instead, there was silence, reflection, and emotional tension. Martell appeared, more vulnerable than before, while Melody remained calm and composed. She wasn't acting like a partner anymore, but she also wasn't cold or angry. She was simply present, focused, and firm in her boundaries. The children were quiet at first, adjusting to the serious environment, but slowly the moment became calmer. There were small conversations, simple interactions, and emotional pauses. Nothing dramatic happened, but the energy in the room felt different, less tense than expected. Later, Melody explained her reason clearly. She said it wasn't about her and Martell. It was about their children. That visit was about showing them maturity, responsibility, and how to handle difficult situations with respect. For her, it wasn't about reopening the past or fixing the relationship. It was about doing what was right as a mother. Many people respected her decision, seeing it as a sign of emotional strength and growth. Others questioned it, wondering if it might lead to confusion or more complications in the future. Martell also responded briefly, saying he was grateful. It wasn't a long explanation, but it showed appreciation for her presence. In that moment, People started to see things differently. Maybe this wasn't about drama anymore. Maybe it was about growth, healing, and learning how to move forward without carrying constant anger. For Melody, this moment wasn't going backward. It was proof that she could face her past without being controlled by it. She showed that strength doesn't always mean distance or silence. Sometimes it means showing up and staying grounded. For the children, it was also an important lesson. They saw their parents in the same space. Without fighting, they saw calmness instead of chaos. Those are memories and lessons that stay with them for life. Now people are left wondering what comes next. Will co-parenting become more peaceful? Will things stay stable? Or was this just a single moment in a complicated journey? No one knows for sure. But maybe the real message isn't about the future. Maybe it's about what already happened, a moment where someone chose maturity over emotion and responsibility over resentment. And that's what made it powerful. And even after that hospital moment, the story didn't fully settle the way people expected. Instead, it left behind more questions than answers. Because once the news spread, opinions started dividing fast. Some people praised Melody for her emotional strength, saying it showed real maturity to face a painful past without letting it control her actions. Others were more skeptical, wondering if stepping back into that environment could reopen old wounds or create new emotional complications. On social media, the discussion became intense. People debated what forgiveness really looks like and whether co-parenting at that level requires emotional distance or emotional courage. For some, Melody's actions were a sign of growth. For others, it looked like a risky decision in a very complicated history. Meanwhile, Martell's silence after his short message added even more curiosity. He didn't try to turn the moment into a public story. He didn't give long explanations or emotional speeches. That silence made people think he might actually be reflecting on everything that had happened, rather than trying to control the narrative. But through all the opinions and speculation, one thing remained clear: both of them were no longer living just for themselves. Their decisions were now deeply connected to their children. Every action carried weight. Every choice had consequences beyond their own emotions. Melody, in particular, seemed focused on breaking a cycle. Not by pretending the past didn't exist, but by refusing to let it define every interaction moving forward. That's what made her approach different. She wasn't rebuilding a relationship, she was rebuilding stability. And for Martell, this moment appeared to be a pause in his usual public image. Instead of confidence or confrontation, people saw vulnerability. Whether temporary or real, it showed a different side that many hadn't seen before. Still, uncertainty remains. No one can say if this moment will lead to long-term peace or if it's just a short break in an ongoing emotional story. Real life doesn't always give clean endings, especially when history is this complicated. What it did show, however, is that healing doesn't always look perfect. Sometimes it happens in uncomfortable rooms, in quiet conversations, and in situations where emotions are still unresolved. And maybe that's the real takeaway from all of this. Not that everything is fixed. Not that the past is forgotten. But that even in difficult situations, people can still choose how they show up for themselves, for their children, and for their future. And that choice alone is what makes this moment stand out. Because in the end, it wasn't about drama. It was about growth in real time. And as time moves forward, moments like this tend to reveal their true meaning slowly, not instantly. What looked like a single emotional hospital visit may actually become part of a bigger shift in how both of them handle life after separation. Because real co-parenting is not about perfection. It's about consistency, boundaries, and learning how to exist in the same space without reopening old damage. For Melody, this could mark another step in her personal growth. She has already shown that she is focused on peace, structure, and protecting her emotional space. And even when faced with situations tied to her past, she seems more intentional about her reactions instead of being driven by emotion. For Martell, the situation may serve as a reminder that life can force reflection in unexpected ways. When everything slows down, when the noise disappears, people are often left with their own thoughts, their own choices, and the impact of what they've done over time. But the truth is, neither of them can fully control how the public interprets their actions. Every gesture gets analyzed, every silence gets questioned, and every decision becomes part of a larger story people continue to debate. Still, behind all the opinions, headlines, and online discussions, there is a simple reality. Two people are trying to navigate a complicated past while raising children who need stability more than anything else. And that is where the focus seems to be shifting now, not on the relationship they once had, but on the environment they are creating moving forward. Because at the end of the day, the past can't be rewritten. But the way forward can still be shaped. So the real question becomes less about what happened in that hospital room and more about what happens in everyday life after it. Will this moment lead to calmer communication and healthier boundaries? Or will it remain just one emotional pause in a long, unfinished story? No one has that answer yet. But one thing is clear, this situation reminded people that healing isn't loud and growth doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes it just comes with showing up and trying to do better than before. And even after that, the conversation around them didn't slow down. If anything, it became more layered. Because people started realizing something important. Situations like this don't wrap up neatly just because one emotional moment happens. Life after separation is usually a long process of adjustments, misunderstandings, and small progress that doesn't always get noticed publicly. For Melody, the next phase is likely about maintaining balance. Staying emotionally steady, protecting her peace, and making sure her children continue to feel secure no matter what is happening between the adults around them. That kind of stability doesn't come from big gestures, it comes from everyday decisions. For Martell, the situation places him in a position where actions will matter more than words. Moments like the hospital visit can create reflection, but long-term change is only measured by consistency over time, especially in how communication and responsibility are handled moving forward. And for the children, this is the part that matters most, even if it is the least discussed publicly. They are growing up watching how adults handle conflict, distance, and responsibility. These experiences shape their understanding of relationships far more than any public explanation ever could. That's why people around the situation continue to focus on co-parenting. Because at this stage, it's not about revisiting what went wrong in the past, it's about making sure the present doesn't repeat the same emotional cycle. Still, emotions don't disappear overnight. There will likely be moments of tension, moments of clarity, and moments where things feel uncertain again. That's normal in any long, complicated history. But what stood out in this situation is that both sides, in their own way, showed a willingness to exist in the same reality without letting conflict completely take over the space. And sometimes, that alone is progress. Not dramatic progress. Not the kind people celebrate online. But quiet, uncomfortable progress that happens behind closed doors and in difficult conversations. So as the story continues, the focus slowly shifts away from shock value and toward something more real, whether two people can build a respectful, functional co-parenting dynamic after everything they've been through. Because that's the part no headline can fully capture. And that's the part that actually lasts. And as the days go on, the reality of that challenge becomes clearer. Because once the moment passes and the emotions settle, what remains is the day-to-day responsibility of showing up in a way that doesn't recreate the same cycle of conflict. There is no final scene in a situation like this. No single conversation that fixes everything. Instead, it's a series of choices: how to respond when emotions rise, how to communicate when things feel uncomfortable, and how to prioritize the children even when personal history still carries weight. For Melody, that means continuing to hold firm boundaries while still remaining present where it matters. It's a balance between protecting her emotional well-being and ensuring that her children never feel caught in the middle of unresolved tension. For Martell, it means accountability showing up in practical ways, not just emotional moments. Real change is reflected in consistency, respect, and stability over time, not just in brief moments of reflection or gratitude. And for everyone watching from the outside, the biggest shift is understanding that this is no longer a story about a relationship. It's a story about co-parenting after a deeply complicated past. That changes everything. Because co-parenting doesn't require people to agree on the past. It requires them to cooperate in the present. And that cooperation is often